The budget makes responsible choices to right-size government, not least so we can protect the essential social programs that give every Canadian a fair chance to get ahead.
Canadians cannot afford the cost of Carney, but the good news is Conservatives will continue to fight for affordable budgets so Canadians get affordable food, affordable homes, affordable families, and affordable lives.
After clearing 2 confidence votes already, the federal budget faces the final test tomorrow evening. How real is the risk that this budget could plunge Canada into another election? Let's bring in our Sunday Scrum. Brett Forrester, a reporter for CBC Indigenous in Ottawa. Kathleen Levesque, a parliamentary reporter for the National Post. Rob Shaw is a political correspondent for Check News, and he's in Victoria. Okay, this is what I'm going to call the speculative scrum, because we are just going to speculate based on things we know and evidence. But Kathleen, I'll start with you. Where do you think this is going to land tomorrow? Obviously, there have been attempts to talk to people, and Liz May telling me today that she's still talking to people today inside the Prime Minister's office. Where do you think we're headed?
I'm really not holding my breath for an election, starting tomorrow. I think, yes, there are discussions ongoing, but there haven't been a lot of negotiations. I think what we've seen is, Mark Carney's government is almost daring opposition parties to vote against this budget and saying, well, perfect, if you want to defeat us, we'll go into an election. But clearly, no one wants that. So, the Liberals have already said that they were all going to be there. The Bloc Québécois is also voting against, and they've also said that all their 22 MPs are going to be in the House of Commons tomorrow. So I think all eyes will really be on the New Democrats, which, again, just this morning, I asked them, they still haven't come to a decision. But also the Conservatives. I think Pierre Poilievre wouldn't say if all of his MPs would be in the House. And I think what we saw from, is that he is not ready for an election right away. He has his confidence vote, his leadership vote, rather, in January. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, maybe a few Conservative MPs simply not being there during the vote.
Yeah, Rob, you're not in the bubble here with us, so maybe you have a different perspective. Certainly, it's not something everybody's talking about, but I will say a lot of people are asking me, oh my gosh, could this really happen tomorrow? I mean, obviously anything is possible, but what are you feeling and hearing out there?
It feels like the biggest game of political nerd chicken possible. Everyone's sort of bluffing right up to the last minute here. The federal NDP leadership candidates are here in Victoria because it's the BC NDP convention, and nobody's talking about an election tomorrow. The federal NDP does not want that. They're dead broke. You've got 7 MPs who could either, maybe a couple of them flip, maybe they abstain. We're looking at a lot of people abstaining, I think. That seems like the most. If you can get 4, somebody's got a medical appointment, they just can't reschedule, somebody doesn't show up, maybe Elizabeth May does get what she needs to provide that vote, and then you have Conservative MP Matt Genereux, who doesn't look like he may be voting, didn't vote in the confidence amendments last week, and then you sort of end up with an abstention somewhere and this thing goes away. But I echo what Catherine said, but this is kind of like an interesting observation on a Carney government pretending it has a majority, tables a budget. Its obligation is to find those votes as a minority government. And instead of negotiating, offering compromise, and making amendments, they just the Prime Minister's talking about his next travel trip overseas. And it really is a pretend majority posture by the Carney government.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That I don't see, Brett, even a few weeks back when the budget was tabled, a couple weeks back, I guess, there wasn't really a sense from the government that they were going to try and seek the confidence, right? Like they were just, this is what we have, take it or leave it kind of thing, which is an interesting approach. And maybe they know that because it's so early on in the mandate, it's unlikely we'll end up in an election, but it does send a signal about how Mark Carney is governing. That's for sure.
I agree. It's interesting to see how some of these debates have played out. It almost feels like a 50-50 chance right now. Everybody keeps suggesting the budget will pass, but there's absolutely no evidence to indicate that the budget will pass and that the government has the votes it needs. It is kind of like this game of political chicken where everybody keeps saying nobody wants to have an election right now, yet all of them actually do kind of have a reason to roll the dice and have an election right now. If you're the NDP, you were decimated in the previous election precisely because you supported so many Liberal budgets in a row. So what more can you lose by opposing this one. For the Conservatives, maybe you're looking at the lay of the land politically and saying, well, the Trump crisis is less acute, the Carney honeymoon period has started to subside, so they too have a reason to go to an election. And likewise for the Liberals, I mean, a majority government is probably on Mark Carney's Christmas wish list right now, as much as nobody wants to have an election. So I agree with Catherine that the NDP is really going to be important here. I remember I spoke with MP Lori Idlout outside the House of Commons after the budget was passed, and I asked her how she was going to vote, and she said she just wasn't sure. She needs to consult with her constituents because she's really in a bind through this budget. On one hand, there's support for the university, Inuit Nunangat University. There's this project that was just fast-tracked in her riding, plus there's $1 billion infrastructure fund for the Arctic in the budget. So these are all things that she would be asked to vote for. So I think the budget really targets some of these individual MPs, some of these individual ridings, and it's almost being used as a wedge for some of the opposition parties to divide MPs from the rest of the group. So I think the ground is being laid for this to pass through abstentions. I agree.
Yeah. I think you're dead on there in terms of targeting ridings, and certainly because MPs were back in their ridings last week, they would have got a sense of what people were saying about it and what made sense for them. Is there, Catherine, though, to Brett's point, an advantage for some of the parties to say, well, maybe we will roll the dice, maybe things could improve for us here?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly the NDP could make some gains. I think, Canadians are seeing more and more that Mark Carney is acting like a progressive Conservative Prime Minister, so this could certainly work in the NDP's favor. I will also note that, even though I don't think Pierre Poilievre wants an election, like the Conservatives' numbers are pretty good right now. I mean, they are just a few points behind in terms of the polls behind the Liberals. So, they could possibly aspire to a government. However, this is a big gamble. If Mr. Poilievre goes into an election and fails once again to form government, I mean, he's finished. So I think that it may be too much of a gamble, I think, for the Conservatives right now. And I think that's why, I'm not holding my breath tomorrow. But, I'll just finish by also saying that usually when there's big speculation of an election, I mean, usually there's some stuff going on. There's some buses being reserved, some planes. These things have not been happening. So, and I mean, Prime Minister Carney is going on a trip the next day. So really, I really do not foresee an election happening.
Yeah, I will say you're right that the Conservatives and Liberals are very tight in the polls, but Mr. Poilievre's numbers remain very poor compared to Mr. Carney's numbers in terms of who would be best Prime Minister. I don't know if that's part of the calculus there as they try to improve people's impression of Mr. Poilievre, but abstaining is one thing, but you can vote virtually, Rob. So I do wonder how people explain that they didn't vote for this, or if they get in trouble from constituents that they abstain, or I don't know how that kind of thing resonates, whether people are actually paying that close attention to things.
I don't think they are, but I'll go back to the federal NDP here, where look, in British Columbia, they got whacked pretty hard. They lost some ridings that they didn't think they were going to lose. They lost their leader. At the BC NDP convention right now, there are multiple resolutions on the floor to de-link the federal party membership with the provincial party membership, because the federal NDP does not align with the provincial NDP, which is fairly popular, and the natural resource development and the things that are being promoted here. So look, the NDP federally have a lot to lose. They could lose more than the 7 seats that they have won. They should not be going into a federal election $26 million in debt, out of alignment with British Columbia voters. That's why I think you'll see possibly the movement coming from the federal NDP.
Last word to you, Brett.
Well, I think it's perhaps worth remembering that what we're voting on, what MPs are voting on tomorrow, is basically a 10-word motion to approve the government's budgetary policy in general. So once that gets over the hurdle, perhaps there's some room to make some backroom deals for MPs to try to get things into the budget bill that's eventually going to have to be introduced and passed. Elizabeth May saying sort of, right now I'm a no, but maybe she can get some assurances at the last minute that some things she wants will be in the legislation. So it's not that hard to bite your tongue and support the motion when you can really take a hard line and fight against the legislation that's coming forward.
Okay, so I won't bring my suitcase down from the attic at this point, is what you're all saying. I'll hold you you all to it. No, I won't.
Yeah,
Brett Forrester.
timestamp it now.
Okay. Brett Forrester, Kathleen Levesque, Rob Shaw. Nice to see you all. Very much appreciate it.
Thanks.
Just hours away now from facing a confidence vote on his budget. It is still not clear that Prime Minister Mark Carney's government will survive it. For days, the PM has been trying to sell his plan as the best path for Canada's future. The Liberals know the margin between a vote to pass that budget and one to force another election is razor thin. Assuming every MP participates tomorrow, the Liberals need just 2 opposition MPs to vote with the minority government for the budget to ensure it passes, or 2 opposition MPs to abstain from voting. If that doesn't happen, Canadians could be heading to the polls in another election. Mark Gerretsen is the Chief Government Whip. Nice to see you this morning.
Thanks for having me, Rosie.
Based on the conversations that you've been having, Mr. Gerretsen, do you expect the budget to pass tomorrow?
Well, I can tell you that we have all of our votes that will be present in the House of Commons, but the reality of the situation is that this is a minority parliament. That's what Canadians elected 6 months ago. They elected a parliament that they're looking for parties to work across party line, and we will deliver our votes on Monday, just like we did on Thursday and Friday of the preceding week when we were in session.
So what are the conversations then that are happening? What kind of conversations are you having, or are you having any with opposition parties to try to get the support that you need, which is not a lot, to be fair?
Well, I mean, it's not for me to say what the conversations are that are going on. My job is the whip. My responsibility is to deliver our votes in the House of Commons. We had all 169 of our members vote on Thursday and Friday because, of course, one member is a speaker, which brings us to 170. And I plan to have all of those there again on Monday. Having said that, I mean, I think it's well documented that the Prime Minister has made outreach to all party leaders to try to listen to what they're looking for to be reflective in the budget. And I think what we're seeing in this budget is a transformational budget, and a budget that Canadians want at a time like this, a budget that builds up our national defense, a budget that initiates projects of a national scale, and one that increases our trade diversification in the context of the world that we live in now.
So I know you know how your people are going to vote, and that is your primary job. But are you telling me that you've no indication from the other parties how they plan to vote?
What I'm telling you is that that's not in my domain. My domain is, as the whip of the Liberal Party, is to deliver our votes. So I will make sure that all of our votes are there, and I leave it up to others to have those negotiations. But you know, I come back to the point that we were elected this Parliament just 6 months ago, and we were elected in this minority situation. This is what Canadians want right now. So there certainly is an appetite to work across party lines. From our side, we're continuing to do that, and we have delivered a budget that reflects what Canada needs right now in the context of what's going on in the world.
Are you prepared for an election if that's where we end up? Because mistakes happen, right, Mr. Gerretsen? I mean, things could happen where everyone thinks it's going to be okay, and then you end up in an election.
We're always ready for an election. The Liberal Party has been ready for an election since the last one. We don't want one. We also don't think that Canadians want a Christmas election. But we will certainly be prepared. We are always ready to go. And if it comes to that, then we will proceed to an election. Having said that, I'll reiterate what I said, which is that I don't believe Canadians want this, and what they want is for us to be working together. And I believe that this budget reflects that.
I'm just going to try and ask the same question a different way. I'm being very transparent about it. But what do you think is the likelihood that the government survives tomorrow? And I guess I would ask that based on, as you point out, those other 2 confidence votes that happened the previous week that you did survive. Does that give you some reassurance, I guess?
I'm not going to comment on the likelihood of it because I don't think it's my place to do that. What I will comment on is the fact that all of our members were there to vote, and they will be there on Monday to vote too. That's 169 votes, and we require 3 more. So I think what it really comes down to is, those members within the opposition parties and their reflections on this budget, and the fact that it is a transformational budget that meets the moment that we're in right now.
On Friday, the finance minister asked opposition MPs, sort of reached out to them and said, you need to elevate yourself above politics for the budget vote, and asked them to do some soul searching. I mean, maybe, but this is a partisan environment, and I don't know whether it's possible to put politics aside on a budget vote that is, very, as you say, it is transformational is the word the Prime Minister uses and is very important. Do you think that's possible for people to put that aside in order to get to the outcome that you want, which is for it to go ahead?
I think it's what Canadians want, and I think it's what Canadians expect. And when Canadians elect a minority parliament, as they did only 6 months ago, they're effectively saying, we want you to work together across party lines. And so I think that those in the other parties have the opportunity to reflect on this and come to the conclusion that this really is a transformational budget, that Canadians aren't looking for a Christmas election, and what they want is Parliament to work together. The Prime Minister did meet with all leaders of the other political parties. There, in addition to the thousands of other touch points that went into the creation of this budget, and this budget genuinely reflects what Canada needs right now. So, I leave it to those that have to reflect on that and come to a conclusion on their own. And we're kind of already seeing that with the two breaks within the Conservative Party. People, members that are deciding this is a budget that they can support, which is why we've had one floor crossing and one individual who's chosen to step down from the Conservative Party.
Well, I'll end on that. Have you had any conversations with other opposition MPs about joining the Liberal caucus?
Listen, Rosie, we are a big tent party. We're always open to accepting new members. We're always open to having conversations with people who share the same values as us. And I think what we're seeing more and more now is that there are more progressive conservatives out there that just don't see their values reflected in the current Conservative Party led by Pierre Poilievre. And that's why we're seeing more and more people come to the reality that this is a good budget. It's a budget that meets the moment that Canada needs right now, and that's why they're choosing to vote for it.
Okay, Mark Gerretsen, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois have both slammed the Liberals' budget and are set to oppose it. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was asked by reporters in Calgary on Friday if he's confident that all of his members of Parliament would vote against the budget. Poilievre would not directly answer.
So I just want to know, are you confident that all of your MPs will vote against the budget?
100% of our MPs oppose the costly Carney credit card budget that is going to drive up the cost of food, housing, and living for Canadians. What all Conservatives stand for is an affordable budget so Canadians can have an affordable life.
The spotlight will be on the NDP and the Green Party tomorrow. New Democrats on Budget Day earlier this month said that they were going to take some time to study the document. They were going to talk to Canadians in their ridings. Still not clear at this hour how they will vote or if they will, because they could have abstained. The NDP leader said on this program that abstaining from the vote is an option for some of their MPs. That's one way for the Liberals to avoid that snap election without outright support from an opposition party. The other way, the Green Party has one MP in Parliament and might end up being crucial in determining whether the government survives. And the leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May, joins me in studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning,
Appreciate
Rosie.
you being here.
Well, thank you.
You said on Budget Day there was no way the Green Party could support this budget, but that you were open to conversations. What conversations have you had? Are you still having them?
Many, and yes, I've had conversations, and the openness, and I have a sense that there's some goodwill. François-Philippe Champagne, for example, in answer to a question on the last Friday we were in session, added to things that weren't in the budget, saying, yes, we are committed to our nature agenda and 30% by 30. But it's still not in the budget, so I've got a lot to weigh. We're still having a lot of conversations.
So is it fair to say you still don't know what you're going to do tomorrow?
It is honest and accurate to say I do not know what I'm going to do tomorrow.
What are the things that you're looking for? I know you obviously said that there weren't enough climate fighting measures in the budget, but what were some of the things that you said to the government and whoever you're talking to? These are the things that I'd like to see. Can you do them?
Well, it's not just that there aren't enough measures for climate. There isn't a commitment. The Paris Agreement isn't mentioned at all. fall. And that was unfortunately also the case in the speech from the throne. So the signals aren't good. So when a new government comes in and cancels existing climate programming measures, doesn't add in new things to address the climate crisis, and so I want to hear clearly and preferably have the budget amended to say, now that gets tricky because tomorrow's the vote, but there's nothing here that says this government understands that we're in what we passed in Parliament when Catherine McKenna was minister. We're in a climate emergency. It was 2019. We're in a larger emergency 6 years later. And what are we going to do? There's also a real uncertainty around support for a number of things that have been promised in the past, like an adaptation strategy. There's a certain level of climate crisis we can no longer avoid, and we're not ready for it. 2024, we had $8.5 billion worth of insurable losses to climate events, and obviously more that weren't insurable. So and the measures for, what are we going to do about wildfires? This budget is quite inadequate.
The Prime Minister has spent a large part of his life also fighting climate change and being on the world stage talking about it. Do you question his commitment to that and his bona fides in that regard? Or?
Well, one has to. I believe in evidence. It's hard to imagine a human being with the intellectual capacity of the Prime Minister writing a book like Values and 10 years ago, 2015, giving the speech that he gave to Lloyd's of London without understanding it and without being committed. But actions as a government are lacking. We're missing in action. We're not at COP30 this year. The government could have planned the budget.
Well, there are ministers there, to be fair.
No, he had to leave already to get back for the vote. So the critical period is this week starting, and neither minister can be there because they have to be here for the vote. That's unfortunate. It's not, and then so the signals aren't good. That's why I'm in the conversations I'm in, because deep down I believe it can't really be true. With the Liberals, you worry all the time that they're going to break their promises. With the Conservatives, if you care about climate, you're worried they're going to keep their promises. So as someone elected in this Parliament to at least make sure that a voice for climate action is not completely absent, I have to keep saying, look, I can't vote for this as is. I need to hear and see the commitment.
How do you weigh some of the other things that the government is doing now? Putting two projects, LNG projects, on a fast track, in discussions with the Alberta government for a memorandum of understanding that the Premier at least says would circumvent some regulations, may include some sort of language around a bitumen pipeline. How do you reconcile those actions with what you're looking for?
Well, Bill C-5, which we experienced in June with, as you'll remember, are absolutely record-breaking press through Parliament with less than 4 days from second reading to it's gone through and it's passed. Not properly studied, and what it said was we can break other laws if we decide a project is in the national interest. So you take these things together, and the new announcements for more climate-killing projects, for more fossil fuel subsidies, and yet I'm still open to giving my vote to confidence of the House because I know how much Canadians don't want another election right away. So I'm in a dilemma, obviously.